Hello all, good evening. Welcome back to National AIS Academy. This shall be your sixth class in our new initiative, that is Focus 300 initiative. For all those who are watching our video for the first time, let me brief you about our new initiative, which is called as Focus 300. In this initiative, every day we shall be uploading one video consisting of 10 most important topics, and this initiative shall run for 30 days in total, covering 300 topics, most important topics which are highly relevant from UPSC Prelims perspective. So by the end of 30th day, you would have covered 300 most important topics, and not just that. Alongside, you would have also covered 3000 plus facts which would directly or indirectly help you in your elimination techniques during your prelims examination. So with that being said, let's begin our class. This shall be your sixth class. In this class, we shall be covering next 10 topics, that is from 51 to 60. So firstly, we have Indian Antarctic Bill. It was in news in the year 2022. In July 2022, Lok Sabha passed this bill, which is called as Antarctic Bill. So what are the key things that we need to remember? Why was it necessary to pass this bill? And what is Antarctic? What is Antarctic Treaty? And important research stations of India in Antarctic region. Then we should also know the important provisions of this bill. From prelims perspective, we should compulsorily know all these facts. See, why was it introduced? Because in the year 1985, please remember, in the year 1985, India joined Antarctic Treaty, or India signed this Antarctic Treaty. Sorry, in the year 1983. So once any country becomes a signatory of this Antarctic Treaty, it becomes an obligation for that country to pass domestic legislation, with respect to management of resources or its research stations which are located in the Antarctic region. So where is the Antarctic region? All that land mass and ice mass, including ice shelves, located beyond 60° south latitude, beyond 60° south latitude. More than 6 countries directly claim their ownership on various land masses in this region. It includes both land mass as well as ice shelves. It is very rich in mineral, so that's the reason many countries are after it, to extract as much as resources possible and to become rich overnight. So when was Arctic Treaty? When was Arctic Treaty passed? It was signed in the year 1959 and came into force in the year 1961. Please remember, dear friends, the question can be asked in two ways. When was the Arctic Treaty signed? If you are asked when was it signed, then please say it was signed in the year 1959. Or suppose if you are asked when it came into force, when was Arctic Treaty when Arctic Treaty came into force? If you are asked about the year of implementation, then it would be 1961, but the signing was in 1959. So what about important research stations of India which are located in this region? See, India has got 3 most important stations here. First one was Dakshin. Now it's no more a research station. It was called as Dakshina Gangotri. It's no more a research station as of now. So it's just a garage kind of thing for India with respect to any research activities that are happening over the Antarctic region. So second one was Maitri, which is still in operation. Its construction was completed in the year 1989. And third one was Bharti, whose Construction was completed in the year 2012. So these are three main research stations of India located in the Antarctic region. First one is Dakshina Gangotri. It's no more in operation now. Second one is Maitri, which was completed in the year 1989. And third one is Bharati, which was completed in the year 2012. Right now, we have two active research stations located in the Antarctic region by India. One is Maitri, second one is Bharati. So, what are the important provisions of this bill? That is Antarctic Amendment Bill. See, the first and foremost is its applicability. The first and foremost thing is its applicability of this bill. Applicability of this bill. Second thing is a central committee has been proposed to be constituted under this bill. Third one is, what are the penalty proposed under this bill? See, this bill applies to almost each and every sector, that is Indians, foreigners, institutions, or important vessels, maybe boats or ships or even submarines, traveling in this region. So all of the entities are covered under this bill. And it also proposes to set up a committee consisting of various ministers from the Indian government to manage all those issues with respect to the Antarctica region. That includes granting of exploration licenses, cancellation of licenses, monitoring of these licenses, and many other factors. So it has a committee being proposed. It consists of 10 members from various ministers, proposed by various ministries, and 10 ministries and 2 experts and 1 minister, that is Ministry of a minister from Ministry of Earth Science. The committee to be constituted under this bill will consist of 13 members in total. 10 members will be recommended by 10 different ministries, and it includes 2 experts, and apart from these 12 people, there shall be 1 minister from the Indian government who is in charge of Ministry of Earth Sciences. So it will be consisting of 13 members in total. And what about penalty? Penalty includes up to 3 years of imprisonment and up to 2 lakh rupees fine. And these are some of the important areas located on the Antarctic region. Please make sure that you remember all of these areas because all of them were in news recently. So there's a tendency of UPSC asking important places in news. Especially when it comes to international relations, UPSC tends to have a keen eye on the latest developments that are happening in Arctic and Antarctic region. So that's the reason. Please remember all these important stations or maybe areas with respect to the Antarctic region. And after that, Antarctic Treaty. I told you about the Antarctic Treaty, right, which was signed in the year 1959 and came into force in the year 1961. So these are some of the important key provisions with respect to the Antarctic Treaty. It says no military use, freedom of scientific navigation, free exchange of scientific plans and data, and it also talks about the claims on territorial claims and any dispute regarding the territorial claims over the Antarctic region. It also seeks to declare the region as nuclear free zone. It means no nuclear testing has to be, should be or can be done in this particular region, and it applies to land and not seas. Please remember, this might be a potential point for your upcoming UPSC preliminary examination. The question can be like this: does the Antarctic Treaty apply to land, or does it apply to seas as well? If there is a question asking about its application to land as well as seas, then please remember it will apply only to lands and it shall not apply to seas. Okay. Then all stations open to inspection by other nations. National laws apply to citizens and not to areas. The treaty may be modified at any time. Requires unanimous agreement of the treaty nations, which is 54 at present. Then you have all treaty nations to ensure no one carries out acts against the treaty. And also there was one more key provision in the Antarctic Amendment Bill passed by the Lok Sabha of India. It says it becomes the responsibility of each and every citizen to maintain the serenity of this particular region, and it also says that citizens or anyone should not pollute this particular region from maybe the usage of wrong materials or maybe through acts such as oil spills and etc. All right. So this was about the Antarctic Treaty. And the regions who are directly claiming their ownership of land over the Antarctic region include Norway, Australia, France, and New Zealand, and also Argentina, Great Britain, and Chile. So all these nations are claiming a direct ownership of various parts of land of the Antarctica. So next we have something called as Criminal Procedure Identification Bill. So it seeks to, first of all, what is it aimed at, or which act is being replaced by this particular bill? This bill seeks to replace the Colonial Identification of Prisoners Act of 1920. In 1920, during the colonial government, Identification of Prisoners Act was passed, and the new bill, that is Criminal Procedure Identification Bill, which now has become an act after being passed by both Rajya Sabha as well as Lok Sabha, seeks to replace this bill. And what is the main point that you need to remember? See, there is only one thing which you need to remember about this particular bill. That is, it differentiates itself from the Identification of Prisoners Act 1920 in that manner, which says the new bill allows collection of biological samples of convicts. That is, Criminal Procedure Identification Act of 2022 allows for the collection of biological samples of convicts, whereas the earlier Identification of Prisoners Act of 1920 did not allow the collection of biological samples of convicts. So under which provisions are the police authorities now empowered to collect biological samples? Please remember, it's not Criminal Procedure Identification Act, whereas it's Code of Criminal Procedure 1973, which allows or which gives the authority for the police under section 53 and 53A to collect data with respect to the biological samples. Getting confused? Please don't get confused. When I say Criminal Procedure Identification Act of 2022, it allows for the collection of, or it facilitates the collection of biological samples of convicts. All right. Whereas, under which provisions under which act are the police authorities now allowed to collect the biological samples? Then it is not Criminal Procedure Identification Act. Instead, it is the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973, which allows police authorities to collect these biological samples. So what do you mean by biological samples? It includes finger impressions, palm print impressions, footprint impressions, photographs, iris and retina scan, physical biological samples and their analysis. It also includes behavioral attributes including signatures, handwriting or any other examination. So here are the key differences between Identification of Prisoners Act and Criminal Procedure Identification Act. I'm just skipping this slide. So this slide shall be provided to you in the form of PDF. Please go through the major differences between Identification of Prisoners Act of 1920 and Criminal Procedure Identification Act of 2022. So these are three major differences between these three acts. Please make a note of these important changes. Under the new law, it's now the responsibility of police and prison officers to collect, store and analyze physical and biological samples including iris and retina scan and signature and handwriting of the arrested convicted prisoners if there is a need. Then a refusal to allow data collection shall be an offence under the Indian Penal Code, that is section 186 of the Indian Penal Code. Also, The bill allows collection of biological data of those arrested under preventive detention too. All right. So this preventive detention is a separate concept. I shall discuss about it in the next classes, upcoming classes. But please remember, the bill also allows for the collection of biological data of those arrested under preventive detention laws. All right. So apart from that, NCRB will be allowed to preserve data for at least 75 years. At least 75 years. All right. Here you can see the major difference between 1920 Act and 2022 Act. That is, the 1920 Act did not allow collecting biological data, as such technologies were developed later. All right. So this is about which one? Criminal Procedure Identification Bill of 2022. Next, it's about Delhi Municipal Corporation Amendment Bill of 2022. It has been passed now. Now it's an act. There is only one thing that you need to remember about this particular act. That is, it proposes merger of 3 municipal corporations into one. That is East Delhi Municipal Corporation, North Delhi Municipal Corporation and South Delhi Municipal Corporation. It proposes merger of these 3 municipal corporations into one single entity, because the central government believes that it is now necessary to increase the efficiency of municipal corporation or the working of municipal corporation. But when was this trifurcation did? When did the trifurcation of Delhi Municipal Corporation happen? It was in the year 2011. In the year 2011, the trifurcation of Delhi Municipal Corporation had happened. Now, after 11 years, that is in the year 2022, this has been reversed. So, key changes with respect to that will definitely happen. You can briefly go through the important key points mentioned here. But apart from that, if I ask you, what are the various provisions now which talk about the municipal corporation? What are the various provisions of the Indian Constitution which talk about the municipal corporations? Article 40, 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. Article 40 of the Indian Constitution, which is about directive principles of the state policy. Then 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, passed in the year 1992. Then we also have a special part dedicated to these municipal corporations, that is part 9A of the Indian Constitution. Then Article 243P2, Article 243G under 12th Schedule of the Indian Constitution also talk about the municipalities. Please remember all these points. These are very, very important points and highly relevant for your prelims too. All right. Next, we have Wildlife Protection Amendment Bill, passed in the year 2021. So this was a necessity for India to pass a bill with regard to the Wildlife Protection Amendment Bill, because previously we had Wildlife Protection Act, which was passed in the year 1972, but after this, a new convention named CITES came into force. A new convention named CITES came into force in the year 1975. CITES means Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. Convention on International Trade of Endangered Species. So, according to this convention, that is CITES, all those member bodies or member countries have to compulsorily pass a new law with respect to the protection of wildlife species, or with respect to the protection of these wildlife from being traded illegally across various countries. So in that regard, the government of India had to pass very much earlier this particular bill, that is Wildlife Protection Amendment Bill, but somehow it got delayed and it was introduced again back in 2021. Now it has been passed. So this is with regard to CITES, that is Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. The basic aim of the bill is to increase penalties for for unlawful wildlife trade in order to protect the endangered species. It also has some great provisions for the better management of protected areas and protection of forest lands. So this is important because it implicitly upholds the protection of the rights of those who have lived there for centuries. And what about CITES? CITES was signed in the year 1975, and the headquarters of CITES is managed by UNEP, that is United Nations Environment Program, which is located in Geneva, that is Switzerland. Geneva, Switzerland. All right. So this was about the Wildlife Protection Amendment Bill 2021. Then moving on, but before that we have 1972 Act. But even before this Act came, even in the colonial era or under the British rule, we have a dedicated Act with respect to wildlife protection passed in the year 1887. But it was only with respect to the wild birds. So it was named the Wild Birds Protection Act and passed by the British Indian government in the year 1887. After that, in the year 1912, a second law was enacted called the Wild Birds and Animal Protection Act, and this time it included animals too. This act was amended in the year 1935, and now in the year 1972, and this is after independence, for the first time a special law with respect to prevention of illegal trafficking or trading of wildlife fauna and flora. A special act was passed, and it was called as the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Its basic objectives included prohibition of hunting, protection and management of wildlife habitats, establishment of protected areas, regulation and control of trade in parts and products derived from wildlife, and management of zoos too. Please remember this last point. It might be a potential statement with respect to the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. If there is a statement concerned about the management of zoos under the question related to Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, then please mark it as the right option. All right. So then, which article of the Indian Constitution talks about the protection and safeguarding of wildlife in India? Article 48A of the Indian Constitution. All right. Next, we have National Anti-Doping Bill of 2021. It was introduced in the Parliament. It mainly seeks to provide statutory status. It seeks to provide statutory status to NADA, which is National Anti-Doping Agency. It seeks to provide statutory status to NADA, that is National Anti-Doping Agency. All right, the bill actually forbids doping in sports by athletes, athlete support staff, or other staff concerned with respect to these sports or athletes. So there are two main objectives of this bill. First one is to provide statutory status to NADA, that is National Anti-Doping Agency, and the second statement is it forbids completely doping in sports by athletes or concerned staff or coach or even other support staff. Right? The functions of NADA, that is National Anti-Doping Agency, would include planning, implementing, and monitoring of anti-doping activities, as well as investigating anti-doping rules violations. All right. The bill proposes to establish the National Board for Anti-Doping in Sports, make recommendations to the government on anti-doping regulations and compliance with international commitments on anti-doping. The board will oversee the activities of NADA and issue directions to it. So, as part of punishment, it might include forfeiture of medals, points, and prizes, ineligibility to participate in a competition or event for a prescribed time period, and it might also include financial sanctions too. Right. Next, we have a Biodiversity Conference of Parties 2015, which was held in the year 2021. So it was called as 2021-22. It was called as Kunming conference. Where is it? It's in China. COP15 to Convention on Biological Diversity. And please remember, UNFCCC, that is United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, and the Convention on Biological Diversity, all three together entered into force in the year 1993, which was an outcome of the 1992 Rio Earth Summit. So, the constitution of all these three institutions, that is United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, and the CBD, that is Convention on Biological Diversity, all three of them entered into force in the year 1993 and were the outcomes of 1992 Rio Earth Summit. So each of these institutions has their own COP, that is Conference of Parties. Like that, the Convention on Biological Diversity too has its own conference or COP, and the 15th edition of COP2 CBD was held in Kunming. It talked about fair and equal distribution of the advantages resulting from the use of genetic resources, and it also talked about the purposes of CBD, keeping biological variety intact, sustainable, and talk about the sustainable use of biological diversity's constituent parts. All right. So please remember, although during the time of Trump, United States of America had moved out of many important environmental institutions. However, even now it participates, and there are also plans to undo all those acts done during the tenure of Mr. Donald Trump. All right. So this Kunming Montreal Global Diversity or the outcome of COP15 could be analyzed with the help of these three targets. It talks about reducing threats to biodiversity. It talks about meeting people's needs through sustainable use and benefit sharing. It talks about tools and solutions for implementation and mainstreaming. The key targets proposed include conserve area, that is at least 30% of terrestrial, inland water and coastal marine areas should be conserved. Restore ecosystems, that is at least 30% of areas of degraded ecosystems are under restoration. And third one is reduce harmful subsidies, that is identify and eliminate incentives harmful for biodiversity. So under these three main targets, there are 23 sub-targets. I'll be sharing these notes in the form of PDF. Please go through each and every point given over here. Next, we have some news about INS Vikrant. So this is India's first indigenously designed and built aircraft carrier. Please remember, it is India's first indigenously designed and built aircraft carrier. Very few countries, including United States of America, United Kingdom, France, Russia, Italy, and China, have their own indigenously built aircraft carrier, and India has entered into this allied club with the introduction of INS Vikrant now. So if you ask about INS Vikrant, there is a legacy behind this. India's first aircraft carrier, not indigenous, but India's first aircraft carrier after independence was INS Vikrant, but it was taken or it was bought from the United Kingdom itself. It was not indigenously built, but it was taken or bought from the United Kingdom. So INS Vikrant now has once again been indigenously built and has entered into India's aircraft carrier fleet. Please remember this point. Next, these are some of the important key facts related to INS Vikrant. You can go through them. Not all of them are important, but the length might be important, not so important, but might be important, I'm saying, because UPSC has a tendency to ask questions here and there, or some basic questions every now and then. So from that viewpoint, please remember this length. That's it and nothing else. Next, we have something called as Prachanda, which is light combat helicopter, and it is also an indigenously designed and built helicopter developed by HAL, that is Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. So if you, there can be a question asking, Prachand, which was in news recently, is a question mark. In the options, you would have it's a light combat helicopter, it's a aircraft carrier, it's a class 75A submarine, or none of the above. So please mark light combat helicopter as the right answer. So it has the ability, the uniqueness of this helicopter, that is Prachanda, as the name itself suggests, is that it can land and take off with a sizable load of fuel and armaments at an altitude of 5,000 meters. This is the unique feature or unique ability of this particular helicopter, that is Prachanda, built by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. And the need for such an helicopter was felt immediately after 1999 Kargil war, when it became very difficult for India to supply goods, services, foods and armaments to the soldiers who were defending us at an altitude above 3000 to 4000 meters, because regular trucks or helicopters would not sustain there for a longer period of time because of various extreme conditions. And that has been addressed with the introduction of helicopter, that is light combat helicopter Prachanda now. Next, INS Vishakhapatnam was in news recently. What is it? It's a stealth, state-of-the-art stealth guided missile destroyer. Guided missile destroyer was recently delivered to the Navy. That was in the year 2022. Please note down. If you are asked, INS Vishakhapatnam, which was in news recently, is a question mark. In the options, you would have it's a guided missile destroyer, it's a submarine, or it's a aircraft carrier, or fourth, none of the above. So in that case, mark stealth guided missile destroyer as the right option. Alright, so it was under project 15B that this class of destroyer ship has been built. So before this we had something called as project 15, and then came project 15A, and now we have project 15B. So under project 15, Delhi class submarine missile destroyers were built, and under project 15A, Kolkata class missile destroyers were built. Now under project 15B, Vishakhapatnam class missile destroyers are being built. Alright, so meanwhile also remember Vishakhapatnam, Mormugaon, Impal, Surat, these are all the name of warships being built under project 15B of the India's defense sector. So there's a project called as project 15B, under which 4 missile class destroyers are being built, and they are named Vishakhapatnam, Mormugaon, Impal and Surat. Right? So the significance of this missile destroyer is that it is the only aircraft carrier that can match the reach and endurance of the destroyers. INS Vikramaditya. So here they have also mentioned about the significance of INS Vikramaditya, and they say INS Vikramaditya is the only aircraft carrier that can match and reach the endurance of destroyers. So please remember, these destroyers, aircraft carriers, submarines, all are different vessels. Please don't get confused. INS Vishakhapatnam is a missile destroyer. Next, we have Akash missile. So it's a surface to air missile. You need to remember 2 important points here. First one is it's a surface to air missile. And it will fly at Mach 2.5 speed. 2.5 speed means 2.5 times greater than the sound of speed. The speed of sound is 343 meters per second. So 2.5 times speed of sound would equal nearly 847 meters per second, and this is the speed of Akash missile. 2.5 Mach, that is 847 milliseconds per 847 meters per second, that is the speed of Akash missile, and it has been developed in cooperation with the DRDO laboratories by the Defense Research and Development Laboratory, Hyderabad. Alright, so Bharat Electronics Limited, that is BEL, and Bharat Dynamics Limited are also responsible for its production. So it will fly at 2.5 max speeds. Yes. So that was it for today. I hope you have understood the important points that I have discussed throughout this class. Please make sure that you are noting down all those important points that I have discussed, and keep revising. I shall come up with 10 more such topics in the next class tomorrow. So until then, take care. Bye bye. Have a nice day. Good night.